Dear authors and invited guests, welcome to a technical session 5A. Good noon, everyone. On the behalf of ICT 4SD 2021 and the Global Knowledge Research Foundation, it's my great pleasure to welcome you to the 6th International Conference on ICT for Sustainable Development through Zoom. We are very thankful to everyone who present on this platform to go along with us digitally for the conference in these unpredictable circumstances of COVID-19 and making this conference more productive. Also, we wish everyone and their families to a protected time, and we all will together pass this soon. We hope you will enjoy the session. And just before we get started, I would like to introduce our chair for this session, Dr. Meenakshi Arya. She is a senior member of IEEE and a fellow of IET and professor in Department of Computer Science and Engineering at SRM Institute of Science and Technology. She has a more than 16 years of teaching experience, and she's research interest area is digital image processing, data analytics, and green computing. Welcome to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Richa. Thanks. Thank you.
Now we can start all the presentations.
The rules for presentation, I hope you all are clear. Kindly wind up your presentations within 10 minutes, 10 to 12 minutes, and then we'll leave the rest of the 2 to 3 minutes for question answers in case they are by the audience. So first I would like to invite the first paper, Cloud Computing in a Distributed Environment Implemented with Networking Technologies. The paper will be presented by Sai Satyanarayan Reddy.
Yeah, okay, madam. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you are.
Yeah, I want to share my screen, madam.
Yes, please go ahead.
Can you see my screen, madam?
Yes, it's visible. You can please start your presentation.
Okay, good afternoon to everybody. This is Sai Satyanarayan Reddy, Professor of Computer Science and Engineering, Shreyas Institute of Engineering and Technology, Hyderabad. My paper is on cloud computing in a distributed environment implemented with network technologies. So this paper is about the cloud computing data that can be distributed to remote servers, and by using two different simulators to work efficiently in the distributed environment that holds the data and computers in our college. So coming to the contents, starting with introduction, problem statement, literature, and methodology, results, and conclusion. And to start with the introduction about the cloud computing, especially with my paper of distributed environment implemented in the network technology. So this data can be distributed to the remote servers, and also data which is distributed to remote servers instead of keeping all the data in the local server. So that is basically with this, the data can be distributed to the remote servers and data distributed in the remote servers instead of keeping all the data in the local server, and the principles of cloud computing are applied to all the servers that hold data. This paper basically uses a cloud simulator that works in the distributed environment using two server models that holds the data in the computer science. Okay, and also we also apply the dogma of cloud computing to the data present in the servers. So distributed cloud environment reduces the overheads of the communication and latencies and costs. So that is how actually the introduction about the cloud computing. And the problem statement is basically to create a distributed system based on the four deployment models in the cloud. That is, we tried in order to manage the cloud environment, we adhere some specific factors. So some of the policies need to be written down, and some of the required decisions must be taken. And based on the certain decisions, we are very important for the deployment of the cloud environment like access control and efficiently allocating the computing resources, network load balancing, and other things further. And coming to the literature basically to the cloud system that can be monitored and measure the service provided by deploying metering system at some point in the computing system, and the cloud SIM, which provides the virtualized scope of computing that helps the users to access data center within no time. And also it keeps in mind of security concern for accessing such kind of data and making the use of virtualization. And also the cloud computing acts with the business tools and other papers which basically provide services using the cloud mathematical models and other resources. The proposal system is basically a cloud simulator that is applicable in the distributed environment by using the hardware proposal simulators. We're using Intel iCore i5 processors and also with the 16 GB RAM. And basically the cloud simulators which used educational data with the relevant data in our college of our department computer science engineering. And this cloud simulator will have 2 stripped down servers that is used less space, consumes less energy, and utilizes nominal power. So we practically implemented this, and I think this is working fine. Of course, we are facing some challenges, but still we are actually going ahead to modify this. But it is how actually the research is happening in this area. And coming to the data centers, which can be used as PSO models, PSO based on the heuristic algorithms. And also that is the particle swarm optimization algorithms we're using. And also we are using directed acyclic graph DAG also. And also the cost of computation tasks, which is inversely proportional to the time, that's what. And we are using the effective HTML algorithms with the version 5. And all virtual systems based on the control element separation forwarding the principles. And also we are using the JavaScript object notations also for the vital number of devices and lines. And all the data access, which are seeing that data access performs effectively in the filtering the packet routing. And every part of the system contains the configuration information of the other devices and also knowledge at the end line. And basically, the system model goes like this with the data center, which is also interact with the cloud space and the user requirement and user need. And also the proposed architecture has, what I told you, the 2 parts. Our data centers first contact the web server present in the non-home network. And also we keep 1 layer of the firewall around the data center, and it passes all the security tests and then contacts the gateway for the accessing the basic services. And in this model, VMware and vSphere to provide us with the virtualization solutions, and VMware vSphere provide the interface with the ESXi having through the API documentation with the Java code. And the other cloud executions and working VMs will effectively work by using the VM deployment and resource allocation and scheduling policies. So this is how a JavaScript and along with HTML allows the users to manipulate the graphics and also to monitor this. So we work on this JSON data, the virtual number of devices and lines. So that is how these things will happen. And coming to the this is also covered using, I told you already, HTML version 5. And coming to the results analysis, in this proposed algorithm, we have assumed that the cost of unit data from the resource I to resource J is also known. The cost of the transfer can be calculated depending on the bandwidth of the site. So the cost metric is used as a parameter of evaluation of our algorithm.
Dear presenter, sorry to interrupt. You have last 1 minute.
Yeah. So we have evaluated the proposed algorithm using 3 tasks. So and the data size is taken as 10 for each source. So this is the next one. So this is the communication cost matrix, that is reduced one. So this is how the screen that tolerance the limit of the proposed algorithm. with the plus or minus, that's what 8.06. So that is lower than the scheduling algorithm. That is how we optimize these things, and the performance of our algorithm is the way it allocates the task and also takes between them. So this is the outcome. Actually, this cannot see the data, but this is the real outcome of the routing table. So this which will show with basically the information about the protocols. And coming to the conclusion, this is the proposed algorithm. We have used heuristic-based algorithms and also to calculate the cost computing using the directed acyclic graph, and also algorithm that have proven the minimize the cost, and also algorithm that appears proper load balancing. So, and in future we want to use the same thing on the real-time data and also other medical image processing. So that's what actually the conclusion is. And these are some of the references. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation. Do audience have any questions? Sir, I just had a question for you. So when you talk about cloud computing in distributed environment, so is it a simulated thing that you have implemented, or have you used some kind of a live data where you are working, or you're using your simulator for the same?
No, we are using only simulator, but we are using the data which is existing in our college, madam.
Okay.
But that's what we are using this, cloud simulator. As I told you, this we are using cloud simulator that works on the distributed environment.
Okay.
We're using these two different models, but existing data is our computer department data only.
Okay, so do you think that the data is sufficient enough, or are you planning to, let's say, incorporate more data later on for testing your system, robustness of your system?
Exactly, madam. Right now, actually, what you said is right, madam. The data is not purely sufficient, but to working with because we want to check with the cost model and everything, and later on, definitely this will be proliferated to the other databases also, and later we want to use with the huge data, madam. Definitely.
Okay. Thank you so much. Well done, and all the best for your research.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I would now like to invite the second presenter. Smart Shoe provides vision to visionless person. The paper will be presented by Roshni Dharme.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, please ensure that you are adhering to the time allotted.
Thank you, ma'am. Very good afternoon to all. I am Roshni Dharme from GH Raisoni Institute of Engineering and Technology, Nagpur, presenting paper on Smart Shoe provides vision to visionless person. As we all know that blind people use a stick as a tool for directing them, we develop a shoe which can be proved to be more efficient and helpful than the conventional one. It is a way to give an eye to the blind people with the aid of technology. In a smart shoe, we have implemented several modules. The first module that we have implemented in our smart shoe, it is GPS navigation and tracking. We are providing GPS navigation assistance to reach their destination with the help of voice command. Also, we track the location of a blind person. The next module that we have implemented in our smart shoe, that is obstacle detection. For obstacle detection, we have ultrasonic sensors. We are using ultrasonic sensors to detect obstacle. Ultrasonic sensors measure distance by utilizing ultrasonic waves. The sensor head produces ultrasonic wave and gets the wave reflected back from the obstacle. It measures the distance to the target by measuring the time between emission and reception. The next model that we have implemented in our smart shoe, that is water and fire detection. So we have used soil moisture sensor for sensing the water. Actually, it measures the volumetric water content in the soil. Then we have LM35 temperature sensor to detect the temperature and fire from a specific source. This LM35, it is a precision integrated circuit temperature sensor whose output voltage varies based on the temperature around it. Actually, it is a small and cheap IC which can be used to measure temperature anywhere between 55 degrees centigrade to 150 degrees centigrade. Then we have porthole detection module. So for a porthole detection, we are using IR sensor. This sensor, it measures the heat of an object as well as detects the motion. Usually in the infrared spectrum, all the objects radiate some form of thermal radiation. This type of radiations are invisible to our eyes, but infrared sensors can detect these radiations. Then we have health tracker. For health tracker, we are using here tracker switch. It will count the number of steps that a blind person taken. Also, it will calculate the burn calories and distance travel with one big data graph. Actually, these results we are showing using an Android application. We have made an Android application to act as an intermediator between our smart shoe and the sensors. All the results we have shown using our Android application. Then the next module in our shoe we have implemented for generating electricity. For the generating electricity, we are using piezoelectric plates. These plates we are using for generating electricity. When the pressure it is applied on it by foot, then it converts electrical energy into natural energy. And this energy we can use to charge our sensors and also mobile phone on the way. This piezoelectric plates, it is the electric charge that amasses in a certain strong material because of applied mechanical pressure. Then again, we have provided a panic touch button. If a blind person feel uncomfortable, then we are providing here a panic touch. He or she will press that power button 5 times. Then the emergency message will send to the close ones. Also, the next module that we have implemented in our shoe, it is a day and time announcement. In every hour, by using voice command here, we will generate a voice message to the blind person for current time, whether it is day or night. So these all features we have included in our shoe to make the shoe it is a smart one. We have GPS navigation assistance, then we have obstacle detection, then we have panic touch, then we have electricity generation module. All these modules we have included in our shoe. The flow diagram of our smart shoe, it is like this. All these modules are connected with the Arduino Nano. Then all modules we have tested successfully, and we will got the accurate results. We have made the obstacle sensor checking, then we have made porthole detection, then fire detection, water detection, also the electricity generation using piezoelectric plates. This is the final output of our smart shoe. It will look like this one. Actually, this is a side view and this is a front view of our shoe. Finally, the conclusion part, the smart shoe, it provides an eye to a blind person by delivering safe, fearless and independent walk. It deals with problems faced by them to walk like a normal human being. Actually, we will provide an eye to a blind person with the aid of technology. All the modules we have tested successfully, and it is ready to overcome all the problems which is faced by a blind people. Actually, it has a great commercial potential and business plan. These are my all references that I am referring to build a shoe as a smart one. Thank you, ma'am. This is all about my presentation.
Thank you so much, Roshni ma'am, for your wonderful presentation. If audience have any questions, you can please ask. Yeah, Roshni, I just had 2 questions to ask. Have you thought of patenting the technology that you have this shoe? Have you thought of patenting it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Soon I am patenting that shoe.
Okay. And also, what is the, if I may just ask a little bit of technical, what is the range that your sensors are able to cater for? So the shoe has an average range or area of influence of how much?
Ma'am, it depends on the sensor, ma'am. If I want longer range, then I use that particular sensor in our shoe. No problem.
No, I'm asking what the shoe that you have designed right now, what is the range that it is catering for right now?
Ma'am, 1 to 2 meters.
Okay. Thank you so very much. Thanks for your wonderful presentation.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Next, I would like to invite Ms. Tanuja V for presenting her paper on positioning based on global navigation satellite system. Ms. Tanuja, are you there?
Yeah, ma'am. 1 second.
Yeah.
The screen is visible, ma'am.
Yes, you are visible. Yeah, it's visible. Please go ahead.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Myself, Tanuja, from pursuing MTech in Siddhganga Institute of Technology, Tumkur. My topic is on positional based on global navigation satellite system. Content are as follows. Introduction. The statistics on the vehicle, such as location visited, driver status logs, and the usage of the vehicles is needed by the authority for validating the vehicular information. The GNSS is used to record the position and timing information, and GNSS can be used as a tool to view the digital map with the help of digital tachography. Using the coordinates of the digital different countries in the form of latitude and longitude, we are proposing a solution to view the digital map of different digital tachography supported system of European Union. And satellite signals of GNSS are used to calculate the vehicle position and speed of the GNSS receiver is deployed as a part of vehicle unit. The existing system are as follows. Currently, limited work is done by using GNSS implementation in DTCO. In the approaches to convert GNSS coordinate to RMC, there are two approaches to convert the coordinates to RMC. In one approach, online tool is used to convert the GNSS to RMC. In another approach, a manual calculation is done to convert the GNSS to RMC. Consider the latitude in the form of 12.954850. A multiple fraction degree value with 60 is computed. By keeping the decimal value aside, we are getting as 57.291. And GNSS, how GNSS is implemented in digital tachography is the functionality of the GNSS in digital tachography are used to record the vehicle position and to validate the speed data of motion sensor, to validate RTC time of the DTCO with GNSS. And however, in both the approaches, the visualization tool to see the travel path of the vehicle is missing. We are proposing an algorithm to do the digital mapping of the vehicle's visit and motion analysis. And the criteria for measuring the GNSS in digital tachography are, there are 4 criteria for user to measure the performance. One is integrity, another one is continuity, and third one is availability, and fourth one is accuracy. First, go with one by one. The accuracy, the portion of vehicles is measured at a given time, where through the integrity and accurate data flow to the system and the timely warning are provided to the user. Through continuity, the capacity of the function outside the disturbance is measured, and through availability, a service provided by the systems within a specific area is measured. Proposed system architecture, the digital tachography consisting of vehicle unit, motion sensor, and the smart cards. The vehicle unit is a part of the brain of the system. It has a processor, a real-time clock, 2 card slots, and a download, a printer, and facility for making the manual entry. The vehicle unit is located in the driver area of the cab. The motion sensor or a speed sensor is located on the gearbox. Its signals is encrypted from the devices and the speed and distances traveled by the vehicle for the vehicle unit to record. The vehicle unit and the motion sensor are paired and the signals from the sensors are fully encrypted. And proposed design flow diagrams for recording the GNSS is as follows. Our proposed solution is used to address the verification of raw geo data as well as optimized geo coordinates, provision of detection future set as per the standard of DTCO, and generate the auto test tubes for validating the geo coordinates. In this figure depicts the proposed GNSS configuration framework for calibration of received data, where this is the in this flow of work we fetch the raw data from data of the polygon in the form of latitude and longitude. Then for validating the geo coordinates as per using the RMC of DTCO, and records the data and read the country data through graphical user interface and validating the country name. And proposed algorithm, the raw data received from the motion sensor and the GNSS receiver are checked, and the representation of the pseudocode of the proposed algorithm to visualize the digital map and validate the geo coordinates received from the vehicle. Input data from the text file, and after the stepwise processing of input data mentioned in the algorithm, a final view of the plot
Be
is
present
displayed.
your last 1 minute.
Okay. And the results are as follows. The representation of simple polygon plot of DTCO supported regions drawn by using the visualization tool, and representation of multiple polygon of DTCO supported countries. The unwanted connecting lines in this polygons is clipped and actual outline is drawn for the polygon for visualization tool. And conclusion, the paper proposes a solution to the visual of the digital map of vehicular unit in real time. They exist very limited work to analyze the global positioning using digital tachography. The resulting polygon plot will provide the effective view of the coordinates at the user interface. As a proposed solution in tool is developed to view the digital map of DTCO by following the rules of European standard. As proposed approach, a tool framework for automatic validation of the coordinates performs the evaluation of the GNSS received data, and these are all some of the reference. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation, Tanuja.
Thank
Could you tell, does audience have any questions? If you have, you can please ask. Okay, if none, Tanuja, I would just like to ask you, are you as of now pertaining or restricting your research to a specific area, or you are, what is the source of your data? Are you doing it for a specific area, or you are, it's globally positioned as of now?
For specific area, we are using for only the European countries data we are using.
Okay, and what is your data source? Where are you getting the data from?
We are getting the data from the European Union in the form of latitude and longitude.
Okay, no, what is the source I'm asking? Are you taking it from a live website which they have, or is it a data center from where you are collecting the data? What is the source where you are getting the data from? As in, what my concern is that in such case of, in such kind of studies, the authentication of data is very, very important. So how are you ensuring that the data which you are getting is authentic, and that's when you are applying the same on your research?
We are getting the data from through digital platform.
Okay. Thank you so much, Tanuja, for your presentation. All the best. I would now like to call upon Rupal Lohani to present her paper on an analytical overview of the state-wise impact of COVID-19 in India.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Are you able to see me?
Yeah, you are all visible.
I will be just sharing my screen now. Ma'am, can you see my screen?
Yes, it's visible. Please go ahead.
Okay, ma'am, I'll be starting my presentation. Good afternoon to one and all. I'm Rupal Lohani. Today, I'll be presenting on behalf of my team and Amrita University on our paper, an analytical overview of the state-wise impact of COVID-19 in India. SARS-CoV-2, or commonly referred as COVID-19, is a respiratory virus that has stormed throughout the world and globally changed the world's infrastructure. In India, it was first detected in the state of Kerala in January 2020, and it has been spreading uncontrollably all over India. The rise of these cases raised concern for the Indian government, and thereby surveillance of the intensity of COVID-19 was initiated with the airport screening. The Indian economy was unevenly affected due to the different levels of the spread of COVID-19. So basically, this study aims to identify the severity of cases throughout the states of India. First, the identification of source of COVID emergence in India, prominent COVID cases per state. Third, death versus recovery rates, monthly COVID cases per state/union territory. So the data set COVID-19 India and state-wise testing details are from Kaggle, and they were selected due to its attribute because they demonstrate important factors that have influenced the number of cases in each state. Important attributes are death rate, recovery rate, and the number of confirmed cases, because they highlight the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic by showing the magnitude of the cases, which enabled us to visualize and represent it. Python Pandas framework was used for data preparation, MATLAB, and Seaborn for data visualization. So our aim is basically to visualize and present comprehensive data that caused a sharp rise in the recent COVID-19 outbreak by analyzing cases among the most affected states of India. This is a bar graph representing number of active cases per state as of May 8, 2021. COVID-19 prominence in the bar graph is arranged in ascending order. It expresses the comparative number of cases in different states within India. The number of cases shows that Maharashtra's variance in the number of confirmed cases is to be the largest and Karnataka's to be the next highest. The statewide scatter plot of death versus the cured cases over the confirmed cases clearly demonstrates that the relationship of death and cured cases, which implies a contrasted relationship against the active cases. The heat chart is a representation of ratio of number of cured cases to the number of deaths. The number of cases that reflect a darker shade demonstrate a higher density. The line plot expresses the growth of COVID-19 cases over the course of 1 year in Maharashtra, Kerala, New Delhi, Karnataka, and Tamil Nadu, with most COVID-19 cases. When examining regional differences, there were no significant differences between North India and South India. The exponential increase of COVID-19 was seen from August 2020 to October 2020. The next spike in cases was experienced from late March 2021, identified as the second wave. A comparative statistical testing between the states of Tamil Nadu, Maharashtra, and Kerala implies that these three states have the highest overall impact on COVID-19 rates in India. All three states have the significant differences plotted in the cure and death rate compared to the overall. So that the states that were most affected were the states that have the major metropolitan cities. Cure and death rates were considered for a proportionality test that proved significant differences between the cases. It was assumed that Maharashtra has the highest number of cases, so gradually the number of cured cases and death cases would also be high. Further performing the analysis, we evaluated that Maharashtra, having median around 83K cases, yet has a high range of cured value as well. But we actually cannot conclude that by rate by count proportion. So after the proportionality tests were conducted, it was contradicted that Maharashtra had only 0.85, I repeat, 0.85 of cure rate, which was lesser than compared to Tamil Nadu, which has 0.89, I repeat 0.89 recent lockdowns that India has been partaking in. Now, this is a prediction model which describes the exponential rise of cured cases, which indicates that nationwide lockdowns, the government that has been practicing, had definitely had a very, very huge impact. So, as you see, the line remained stagnant before March 2021. However, after the implementation of lockdown along with deployment of vaccines in India, the number of cure cases also increased. At the end, this data will be very helpful to analyze with the concentration of factors that helped the spread, along with actions undertaken by the Indian government. However, there are some limitations on how much this study can achieve. The lack of data available to open public is the biggest challenge. It is possible to extend this project with better data in the future once they are released. The prediction model, which I just showed, definitely can be extended in order to conclude the better predictions before the next wave arrives. I would like to conclude my presentation by emphasizing on some points. So this study emphasizes the concern of contagious nature of virus and its mutations. The graphical analysis illustrates the devastating transmission of COVID-19 from March 2020 to July 2021. The number of active cases in most of the affected states of India are Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, and Kerala. Taking the second wave into consideration, if the government was more vigilant towards receiving international passengers, then this situation could have been better controlled than it is now. Also, a deduction of the contrasted relationship against the active cases can be very helpful to analyze certain key factors where we are arriving on some very, very contradicting statements, like I mentioned in the case of Maharashtra. By mapping the prevalence of COVID-19 cases per state, researchers can focus more on how to reduce the intensity in those specific areas and help to allocate resources to the states of India that are actually in need. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rupal, for your presentation. Is there anybody who has a question? Okay, Rupal, I just want to know what is the platform that you have used for implementing your research? Is it done in Tableau or Python, or what is the platform? Rupal, can you hear me? I think we've lost her. So we move ahead. May I now invite Mehtab Shaheen to present her research on implementation of e-birth registration system, potential and challenges, the case study of Iran. Mehtab.
Hello. Yes. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. So give me a minute to share my slides.
Hello, ma'am.
Yes, Rupal, you can answer, yeah, while Mehtab is sharing the screen.
Yes. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes, it's visible.
Okay. Hello again, everybody. My name is Mahtab, and I'm going to present my paper. It's with the title of Implementation of e-birth Registration System, Potential and Challenges, the case study of Iran. The context of my presentation is as follows. The first one is introduction, research questions, methodology, results, conclusion, and future work. As a brief introduction, I would say that civil registration is a way by which countries keep a continuous and complete records of births, deaths, and the material status of their people. Information and communication technology enables government to provide better and more effective services for citizens. And if e-service refers to an electronic service, on the other hand, the services that are delivered electronically. In recent years, all developed and even developing countries have taken successful steps towards the deployment of e-government in order to enhance people's quality of life. Based on the increasing people's awareness of modern technologies and electronic services, governments are expected to provide public services for various segments of society more effectively than ever before, at the lowest cost and shortest time. Therefore, this international experience could be used as helpful resources to provide new ways to delivering services in the Iranian e-government system. According to the World Health Organization, the registration of birth is a basic human right, and the birth certification should be conducted immediately after a child is born. In all nations, a birth certificate is a vital legal document that gives an identifier to a child. And the research question of this paper is as follows: how can be citizens and governments of Iran benefit from the implementation of e-birth registration services? And what are the challenges that governments and citizens might face while utilizing this service? And what are the most important underlying factors to be considered when implementing the system? Our research methodologies consist of three main stages. In the first stage, we have analyzed the case of Estonia. And to implement e-birth registration services effectively in Iranian civil registration system, it's necessary to utilize the framework and background of other countries. And Estonia is a well-known country which has able successfully conduct e-government in all aspects of human's life. And the next step was a questionnaire among citizens. And we have provided a questionnaire and asked about 200 people, and these people were pregnant or have a child. And then we have interviewed by hospital employees. And for that, we have selected 2 big cities of Iran and interview with experts and doctors who are aware with birth registration. As I told you earlier, we have selected Estonia as a prior country, and the direction of e-birth registration process in Estonia is as follows. In order to report birth, parents must send an application to the Vital Statistic Office. The officer is responsible for registration the birth within 7 working days after the request. Birth registration and the production of a birth certification are free of charge, and the application is not required to be sent in person. However, the application is submitted digitally and must be contain the following piece of information like name, gender, date of birth, personal identification code, place of birth, and citizenship. And the next step was, as I told you, survey results, and our research is, and in our research, we have provided a questionnaire and ask about 200 people about their opinion on implementation of e-birth in Iran. I just refer to some of them. For example, 38% of people not satisfied with the security, and about 100 of people staying in a long queue. The second stage of our process was interview with expertise. The blue color refers to advantages and the red color refers to challenges. For example, 6 of the experts agrees that implementation e-birth is able to accurate data, and 4 of them agreed that the internet connection may be a problem. As a conclusion, I would say that I would just refer to some of the conclusion. For example, decreasing employees' workload, need to improve the level awareness among citizens, the legation gaps affecting the provision of e-services, and also implementing e-services could save time and resourcing, remove the long queues, and eliminate face-to-face visits. And for recommendation, I would say that we have to ensure about the security of personal data, archive records, and identifying the legation gaps affecting the provision of e-services. For future plan, we have to provide data exchange layers such as X-Road in Estonia, and what necessary organization and administrative factors in the Iranian public sector and needed to be addressed and analyzed. And thank you for your attention. And if you have any questions, I'm ready to answer.
Thank you so much, Mehta, for your wonderful presentation. So I would just like to ask you, what is the rate of registration of births as far as your country is concerned? And how would your system actually ensure that more and more people are registering?
You mean Iran, yes?
Yes.
In Iran, all the steps are doing in person, and we have a long queue, and lots of workload in Iran, and to save time and to decrease and also increase the people's satisfaction, we need to improve. And to answer your question, the birth rate, I think, is 2, I think. I'm not sure about that, but I think.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you for your wonderful presentation. I've had a power cut.
You're
here,
welcome.
so
You're welcome. Have a good day. Bye.
you too. Thank you. Yeah.
Sorry to
Now-
interrupt, ma'am.
Yeah.
Rupal, this side. I'm really sorry I lost my connection in between.
No, it's fine, Rupal. Yeah, fine.
Yes, ma'am. Do you have any questions for the paper presentation?
Yeah, I was just asking you, what platform have you used for the implementation? Is it Tableau or Python? How have you implemented your research?
Ma'am, it is through Python. And
Okay,
usually the
okay,
visualizations have been done on Google Colab.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Have a nice day.
You too, thank you. I would now like to invite Pranav Bhatija for presenting his research on image captioning using ensemble model.
Yeah, hi. I'll share my screen. Is it visible?
Yes, it's visible, yeah.
Okay. So there's an old saying that a picture is worth 1,000 words. Complex and sometimes multiple ideas can be conveyed using a single image. Humans have the ability to simply look at an image and describe it in a matter of seconds. This task proved to be much more complex for machines, but if done successfully, can be used for a variety of tasks. Generation of captions requires an understanding of natural language processing, as well as the ability to locate, identify, and relate objects present in an image. The proposed model attempts to create a model that takes as input an image and provides as a caption as the output. So from this, we can understand that the problem statement is something like the task of automatically creating a description of an image using natural language sentences. The goal is to achieve a caption that would be similar to a caption a human would write for image to describe it. It uses both natural language processing and computer vision to generate captions. The image is first passed through an encoder which extracts features from the image. These extracted features encompass information about the contents of the image, and this is then passed through a decoder which uses the information present to output a caption which would adequately describe the image. So image captioning can be used for in many fields, but primarily it has major applications in healthcare field because it can help in products which are used for visually impaired people, as we can use the text generated after image captioning to, and this text can be translated to braille as well as audio, and if done successfully it can improve the quality of life for such people a lot. Additionally, they can be used to interpret x-rays, CT scans, MRIs, etc. Another use can be found in semantic image search, which is something that Google does with their application Google Lens. And it can also be used to bring a sense of visual intelligence to chatbots, as well as help with image tagging in social media. So currently there have been three main models which have been used in image captioning. These are template-based models, retrieval models, and generative models. So in template-based models, the model primarily focuses on identifying the objects, actions, and the scenes in the images, and then using a predefined template, the captions are generated. In retrieval model, the model looks for similar images in a stored database, and the captions that have been stored for these previous images are then used to generate captions for the image that we want. Both these models fail to generate novel captions. This is where generative methods come in. So generative methods are end-to-end models. An example of this would be the encoder-decoder model that is used in the show and tell architecture. So for our model, we have used an ensemble model that is a combination of the LSTM-based model and the transformer encoder model. Both these models are examples of encoder-decoder models. Usually, encoder-decoder models have been used for machine translation, where RNNs act as both encoders and decoders. But for our task, we have used CNNs as an encoder. CNNs work perfectly for this task because they are able to generate rich fixed length vectors which encompass the information about the images, like the objects present in the images, the activities being done in the images, the colors present, and other such information. So for encoders, we have used Inception V3 model. Inception V3 model is a pre-trained model which has been trained on the ImageNet dataset, which has 1 million images and 1,000 classes. So the encoder basically acts like a feature extractor by extracting the important features present in the image and passing along this information to the decoder. The job of the decoder is to then process the information it receives from the encoder and to describe the image to output a caption using this processed information. So the decoder takes as input the output produced by the encoder plus the previously generated caption to output the caption for the image one word at a time. The partially generated caption is first pre-processed and tokenized before passing it through an ensemble layer. For our purpose, we have used fast text subword crawl as the pre-trained word embedding. So for ensemble model, to create the ensemble model, what we've done is we've used the output from the softmax layers of both the models and averaged it to generate the probability which would be used to generate the next word. This was done because during training, we noticed that the words, some of the words that were being generated with low confidence, and we felt that using an ensemble model would help increase this confidence. These are the training parameters we use. We train our models for 15 epochs with a learning rate of 0.0001, and softmax was used with Adam as the optimizer. So we trained to understand how well our model performed. We tested our models on 500 unseen images, and as you can see, the blue score for the ensemble model is better than the blue score for the other models. But to understand where our model wasn't performing well, we did a little more digging. So as you can see, the images present on this table, for these images, the captions are exceptional. And we noticed that this was because the objects in the images, the peoples in the images are clear and distinct. On the other hand, in this table, the captions for these images weren't as good. They were subpar. And from our understanding, this was because the objects and items and people in these images were clustered together, and also the images are a little blurry and taken from a little far, so the distance from the objects is a little more. And because the images present in the data set were mainly of the kind in the first table, the model did not perform as well on these new images. So from what we can conclude, from our findings, we can conclude that the ensemble model is better at generating captions than the existing models. The project also shows that with deep learning techniques available, there's still room for improvement. However, the current limitations of generating high scoring captions only for distinct images and not for clustered and vague images needs to be overcome. Currently, there's some research going on to improve these and overcome these issues. The most advanced research that is currently being done has used this encoder decoder model, but with an additional visual attention layer, which is similar to the attention which was previously being used in NLP. And this model has proved to have certain benefits and improving the task of image captioning a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Pranav, for your presentation. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, thank you. So Pranav, I just had one question. Have you used transfer learning or you have used pre-trained models? I was not very clear when you mentioned about InceptionNet. So have you used InceptionNet as a pre-trained model or as a have you used it in transfer learning mode?
We've used it in transfer learning and pre-trained. It's pretty much the same, right?
No, it's not the same. Transfer learning is different and pre-trained is different.
We used it as transfer learning, not pre-trained. Pre-trained, you train it again.
No, that's not the.
Okay.
That's not the difference. In pre-trained, you do not change the output layer. In transfer learning, you'll chop off some part of the neural network and you'll tune it as per. You'll tune the hidden layers as per your requirements. So, how have you used it?
It's pre-trained.
Okay, and also, could you tell me why have you used softmax in the outer layer? How many categories of images are you? You are not classifying images as categories, right?
So basically,
so I could not. Could you just go to the architecture that you have of your system? I was just a bit intrigued.
So what happens is to generate the caption,
Just stay here. No, you can come to the next one. Oh, that's the Inception V3. Can you just come to the next slide? Yeah.
So this is not the
main. So you have used Inception V3 as such. So you are using it as a pre-trained network, not as transfer learning.
Yeah.
Okay. So can you go to the proposed system architecture?
So basically, how the model generates the caption is it generates one word at a time. So basically, this output, the classes for the softmax layers would be the whole vocabulary that the model learns from the data set we have. So first it will generate.
So why have you not used an RNN or an LSTM over here, and you are going in for I don't understand the.
We've used a bidirectional LSTM.
Okay, yeah.
And then the bidirectional LSTM is we tried generating the full sentence at one time, but that didn't work very well. So we decided to generate one word at a time. So the image and there's a start token that goes in the start into the model.
Yeah.
This generates the first word. Then the start token and the first word along with the image goes again into the model to generate the second word. And this goes on till we reach a certain length.
That's how your LSTM, that's the basic working of an LSTM, where it has a memory, where it remembers what was the previous words. So what is the difference between this model and the model that you've shown in the next slide?
This uses a LSTM as the encoder, decoder, and this uses transformer encodings as the decoder.
Okay. Okay. That's it. Thank you so much, Pranav. Thanks.
Thank you.
Next, I would like to invite Saima Shahab for presenting her survey on Social Internet of Things, a review.
Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon, everyone. Am I audible?
Yes, it's fine. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Saima. I'm here to present my paper on the topic SIoT. So the main objective of this paper is to provide an overview of the fundamental of SIoT, Social Internet of Things, its architecture, relationship management, trustworthy management, and wider other technologies. In the digital area, digital thing, IoT is a crucial technology trend to nowadays. It is expected that now IoT devices have rise to 25.1 billion by 2025. In the IoT family, there is a subset that is SIoT, Social Internet of Things, which is relatively a recent concept and a method of integration of IoT with social networking. SIoT is a simulation of human-to-human and object-to-object social network, where humans are called intellectual and relational objects. They build their own social network to accomplish common objectives such as enhancing accessibility, success, productivity, as well as providing the services as they need. The problem statement of this paper is many papers have been not focused on SIoT comprehensively to discuss in all the aspects in detail, which motivated us to provide a new systematic literature review. Due to lack of comprehensive knowledge of the SIoT system that examines it in details from all the aspects, lack of insufficient information of combining SIoT with other technology for better result output. So the component of SIoT, the fundamental component of SIoT are SIoT architecture, network navigability, relationship management, service discovery, trust management. SIoT architecture. Researchers have made many attempts to create an architecture for SIoT schemas. While there is no specific architecture for SIoT, mainly there are 3 layers are present. So the proposed architecture has the following. The base or object layer consists of 2 sub-layers, includes infrastructure and communication layer. It includes a database for storing and handling data with relevant descriptor, a database on ontological semantic engines and communication. The middleware composite layer responsible for interaction and transaction between different components in SIoT. In general, the SIoT devices are capable of thing-to-thing, social-to-social, or thing-to-social interaction in the pervasive environment. It takes care by this layer. The upper layer is the application layer of software that ensures user engagement with SIoT application. Here, user interact. It delivers specific services to the user. Now there's a flow chart of pre-internet to SIoT. Pre-internet was the time the human-to-human interaction were there. Then comes the smart network, internet of content. Example is email. Then smart IT platform and services. Internet of services like e-commerce, smartphone and applications, internet of people, social media, YouTube, like Facebook, smart devices and object, internet of thing-to-thing, human-to-human interaction. Example, smart object, then smart society. Comes the social internet of things, human-to-human, human-to-things, like smart home. This is the architecture of SIoT. Now, the relationship, the main part of this IoT is a relationship management. There are 2 types of relationship management, user to object and object to object relationship. In user to object, owner and object relationship is there. This relationship established between object with a specific owner, like heterogeneous app on someone's phone. Social object relationship. This relationship is based on social relationship established between the object's owner, which results in the collaboration between their devices. Sibling object relationship shall be formed between the object belonging to a family member or a group of friends. Then guest, at last, the guest object relationship is established between the object owned by the user in a guest position. For example, when a person spends time on a social wise at a friend's place and take care of your liberty as a guest. Now, the object-to-object relationship. In this parent-object relationship, the relationship established between object and usually all objects that work together are homogeneous. Stranger-object relationship, it occurs between the object that comes into the contact with each other in public or on go. Guardian-object relationship, in which a vehicle on board unit becomes a type super object growth unit, giving a new hierarchical relation to a special
Okay,
meaning.
presenter, you have last 1 minute.
Hello?
Yeah, last 1 minute left for you, Saima.
Okay. Should I move forward? I have a literature review on several. In this, I have done a literature review on the basis of their components, like on relationship management, network navigability, architecture of SIoT, trust management, and SIoT. And the second table is with other technologies, SIoT with machine learning, SIoT with fog computing, SIoT with deep learning and 5G, artificial intelligence, and blockchain. Discussions. This section discusses the advantages of SIoT, associated challenges, application of SIoT in the near future. Because of the SIoT, object can move the Internet of Things, use social relationship to find utilities and resources. The social Internet of Things strengthens the consumer's interaction by offering reliable data analysis. The SIoT models offer a framework for the IoT that is close to human-centric social network in terms of network scalability, effective discovery of objects and services. It enables us to create a trustworthy service or relationship between objects and the information by holding the interaction between the devices or objects. The application of the SIoT, remote monitoring, renders simpler.
Saima, your time is up. Can you please wind up?
Okay, ma'am. So the conclusion now is in this paper, people have reviewed the latest research studies on the social Internet of Things are involving in near future. We can propose and discuss a framework, take privacy, security issues, and the collaboration with other technologies like machine learning, artificial intelligence, and fog computing. So thank you.
Yes, thank you, Saima. So my this has been a research literature survey paper, but what are the conclusions that you have drawn out of the literature survey that is there, as in how do you intend progressing your research further?
In future, SIoT hasn't not been combined with other technologies like machine learning, deep learning, cloud computing. When you combine SIoT with these other technologies, then it can enhance the more, it will go more beneficial result.
How do you intend collecting data for this SIoT in case you decide to go ahead with some project on SIoT? What will be the source of your data that you are looking at?
Ma'am, I don't understand what are you asking actually.
No, for performing any kind of a research, you need some kind of a data which you will give as an input. So to understand, for instance, dynamic social relationships. So how would you, what will be the source of your data for you to understand such dynamic relationship?
Ma'am, the data which we use in IoT devices, that will be the data, and we will combine SIoT with that for enhancing that thing.
Okay. Thank you so much, Simon. Thanks. Now I would like to invite Vandana Yadav to present her research on simple square slot variable antenna with coaxial feed for ISM band applications at 5.3 gigahertz frequency.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Yeah, good afternoon. Please go ahead.
Okay, ma'am. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Vandana Yadav. My topic is simple square slot variable antenna with coaxial feed for industrial, scientific, and medical band application for 5.3 gigahertz frequency. In my presentation, the content are introduction, antenna configurations, result and discussion, conclusion is future scopes, and fifth is references. In recent years, after development of wearable devices has comes in picture due to its lightweight and flexibility. So that's any wearer can wear very easily, and we can monitor wear continuously with the help of wearable devices. These devices can be used in various fields, such as in healthcare, security, sports, space, rescue, glamour, and wireless communication. Due to these advantages, many researchers have designed various antenna for different garments, such as on kurta, t-shirt, jackets, etc. For wearable antenna, the substrate material is a very important factor. When we go to design, when we go to simulator, then the fabric material is a very important factor. There are many fabric material such as polyester, cotton, nylon, but polyester is the best among all. After literature survey, I have found it. We know that the height of the substrate is a good factor for designing. So in this design, I have multi-layered of the substrate, three dielectric material, three polyester material. In this paper, my antenna size is 17 into 34 substrate material, substrate dimension, and 15 into 30 patch dimension. This antenna is designed for 5.3 gigahertz with the gain of 7.2 dBi and bandwidth of 400 megahertz with the return loss minus 30 dB. There is a comparative analysis of proposed antenna with reported antenna. There are various parameters on behalf. I analyzed I compared proposed antenna with reported antenna, such as size, gain, operating frequency, frequency range, bandwidth, and speciality. What is the special in that antenna? There are the comparison. Antenna configurations. Antenna, when we design antenna, the first of all, we have to calculate the dimension. So with the help of formula, F0 is equal to C by 2 E effective root, and M and N is here the mode of L, and W is the length and width of the patch. With the help of this formula and with the help of some other formula also, we calculate the dimension of this antenna. When we calculate that frequency was 8.65. And my dimension is 17 into 34 into 1.092. 1.092 is the height of the substrate of single polyester material, but after layering, this height is increased. So after calculation, this dimension was Then my second stage is I cut the slot in the patch 10 into 10 mm square. After this slot, the frequency is lowered, and these are the progress of my design. In first design, that is antenna 1, here is no slot, only a simple rectangular patch. This patch is 8.65 gigahertz. After cutting the slot, after cutting this slot, I lowered the frequency, but the gain was not too good. Then the slot is shifted here. This is the proposed antenna with better gain and resonating frequency 5.3 gigahertz. This is the overall structure and dimension of my antenna. This is the picture of coaxial feed. This is the coaxial connector, that is pad, ground, and this is the substrate material, which is in 3-layered. The feed position and slot have an important role to load the frequency and to resonate with the proper impedance matching. The actual impedance matching was found at y is equal to 11 and x is equal to 11 mm. This is the result. Here we can see that this is the minus 30 dB return loss. So we can say that this antenna has resonate proper for 5.3 gigahertz. That is the best textile antenna in all here, presenting reported antenna and with a very simple structure. This is also gain, where we can see that the gain is about 7.21 dB at 5.3 gigahertz frequency range. And this is a 3-dimensional radiation pattern of.
Dear presenter, you have last 1 minute.
This is the, yes sir. Hello.
You have last 1 minute for presentation.
Last 1 minute. Okay. This is the voltage standing wave ratio result. That should be positive and between 1 to infinity. And that is last conclusion. This is a polyester based wearable antenna designed for 5.3 gigahertz with bandwidth of 400 megahertz. To increase the substrate height, we added the 3 polyester, and to obtain the sufficient height of the substrate. The size of slot and feed of position also help to rise the frequency and increase the gain and return loss of the antenna. The proposed antenna is analyzed on ANSYS HFS 17 software. The future scope of this antenna is in future we can use the embedded material for various applications and also use partial ground and modify the feed point and slot dimension and slot position also. And these are the references. And thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Subandhana, so much for your wonderful presentation. I just want to know what is the basic difference between the antenna that you have proposed and other microstrip antennas?
In my proposed antenna, is a very simple, due to only a simple square cut in the patch, and it is resonant to 5.3. Here you can see there are the 7, 8, 9, 10 references. These are the dimension is also minimum of my antenna, and only a simple square cut is the major factor to resonate this frequency, ma'am.
Okay, so is square the best shape for the application that you have? Have you tried other shapes, like let's say if it's rectangle, if it's a triangle, whether it will give you the same kind of performance?
I have designed five dimensions: circular, rectangular, and a square. But
okay.
This is the suited only 5. This frequency. This is the suited dimension.
Okay. Thank you so much, Vandana, for your presentation.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, everyone.
Next, I would like to invite Prachi Patankar for presenting her research on text summarization of news articles.
Yes. Is it visible?
Yes, you can start.
Okay, thank you. So good afternoon, everyone. I am Prachi Patankar, and I will be presenting for the topic text summarization of news articles. It is co-authored by Tanvi Yog, Shivani Rege, and we were mentored by Professor Dr. Mridul Dixit. We brief the text and gave us useful information. It will reduce the reader's time to read the whole text. It will give the reader content, what is present in the text. It will be easier to find the useful information from the whole text as well. Also, if we want to save the data in computer, so it will reduce the memory. So our aim was to summarize the news article in 4 different languages. That is, we have taken English, German, Hindi, and Marathi. And then we wanted to compare 3 algorithms, that is weighted algorithm, text rank, and fuzzy logic, and which algorithm would give the best result for the news of which language. So as we text summarization has 2 approaches, extractive and abstractive. And in extractive, sometimes the important features in a sentence can be extracted, or the whole sentence is extracted, while abstractive will understand the text and then it will create its own sentence to form the summary. As we were summarizing news articles, the facts were important. And so we went for extractive summarization, where we extracted the whole text. So here is an example. We can see that only important phrases in a sentence is extracted, which makes the summary grammatically incorrect. So in this example, we can see that the whole sentence is extracted. So it makes the summary grammatically correct, as well as the facts are also retained. So for our, the methodology was to get the source text first and then pre-process it by removing the stop words, punctuation marks, and lowering the text. And then according to the algorithm, we compute the score of the sentences. Then we extract the highest ranking sentences. We wanted the summary to be 25% of the whole text. So for that, the number of sentences divided by 4, that was the ratio. So we took that many sentences for the summary, and then we formed the summary, and then the final was comparison of the algorithms. So the first algorithm we used was the word frequency, where we first split the words and split the text into word, and then calculated the frequency of each word in the whole paragraph. And then we found the maximum frequency and divided each word's frequency by that maximum frequency to get the word score. So later we went sentence wise and added the word score for the words present in that sentence to get the sentence score. And then the highest ranking sentences were extracted. So in this way, in general, it was done like this is the example where stop words are removed and the remaining words frequency is calculated. The highest frequency is also calculated, and dividing each frequency by highest gave us the word score. And then we went sentence wise to get the sentence score. So the next algorithm we used was the text rank, where we first split the text into individual sentences and found the vector representation for each. And then we used the cosine similarity to get the similarity matrix and then convert it into graph. And then finally, we use the PageRank algorithm to find the sentence score. So this is the example for that. These are the sentences and these are the sentence vectors. The cosine similarity formula we used and the matrix. So the last algorithm we used was the fuzzy logic algorithm. We use this because it also gives us like partial values. So we wanted to find the importance of the sentence, like whether a sentence has high importance, medium, or low importance. So for that, we extracted 8 features, and each feature had a score. So then we created a fuzzy control system where if these scores were given as inputs. Then we made that if if a sentence has more number of feature scores between 0 to 3, then its importance would be low. If its values were between 4 to 6, then its importance would be medium. And if more number of feature scores were between 6 to 10, then its importance would be high. And thus we got the sentence scores and we extracted the important sentences to get the summary. Later, to evaluate the summary generated by these algorithms, we use the Rouge metric, and as it compares and finds how much similar are two texts. So one text was an ideal summary, and the second was the summary generated by these algorithms. So it gave us the F1 score, precision, and the recall values. And if the F1 score value was near 1, so we could conclude that the similarity between the reference summary and the algorithm summary was high, and the algorithm is performing better for the news of that language. And if the F1 score value was near 0, then we could say that the similarity between two texts was low and the algorithm is not working that better for the news of that language. So this is an example. This is the English news, and the first is the summary generated by weighted algorithm. The second is by the text rank, and the third is by the fuzzy logic algorithm. So this is for English news article, and this is for German. Similarly, for we did for Marathi news article also, and then for Hindi article as well. So later we calculated.
Dear presenter, you have last 1 minute.
Yes. So later we calculated the average F1 score, precision, and recall value by taking 50 English news, Marathi, Hindi, and German news. And from that, we got to know that that for English news article, TextRank's F1 average score was highest. And so we could tell that for English news, if we use TextRank for summarizing, it was better. For German news, the weighted and fuzzy logic gave better results. And so for summarizing German news, weighted and fuzzy logic algorithm can be used. For Marathi news, the weighted algorithm gave better results, and its average F1 score was higher than TextRank and fuzzy logic. So for Marathi, weighted could be used. And for Hindi news also, weighted algorithm gave better performance than TextRank and fuzzy logic. So unsupervised algorithm, we did require any pre-labeling of the data, and all the three algorithms could be used on the news of all the 4 languages as well. Future scope can be like, this is only an evaluation part. So if we want to convert it into practical application, like making an app or a web page, we can use web scraping to get the data directly from the web pages. Also, if there are 2 or 3 news articles about the same topic, then document summarization can also be done. So it will also speed up the reading process, and we will get the data fast. Thank you.
Thank you, Prachi, for your presentation. I just had a question. There are so many, so many projects where people have done this kind of a work. So did you look at something called as GloVe, or what can be the better ways of going about in this kind of an NLP application?
We actually we went through many algorithms and work done by people. So, but it was our first time we was doing a project or research in NLP and using Python. So we first started with something we could try, and so we used algorithms, these algorithms. And so future work will be, we will study them also and then compare the results of both.
Thank you so much, Prachi. Thanks for your presentation.
Thank you.
Now, last, I would like to invite Sharmila More to present her work on personal identification using fuzzy approach and RSA algorithm.
Yes, ma'am. It's visible, ma'am? My presentation is visible?
Yes, Sharmila, it's visible. Please go ahead.
Thank you, ma'am. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sharmila. Today, I'm going to present the personal identification using the fuzzy approach and RSA algorithm. which is prepared by me and my guide, Dr. Bhavna ma'am and Dr. B.T. Jadhav sir. In my research paper, I have discussed introduction of biometric system, multimodal system, objective of the system, and why fuzzy logic is used in this system, and fuzzy logic and multimodal relation, fuzzy inference system for proposed algorithm, and fuzzy results for MSc, PSNR, SSIM, quality and entropy parameters, accuracy test of proposed algorithms, conclusion and bibliography. The objective of my paper is to design a new algorithm to increase the security issues in multimodal biometric. Multimodal biometric is used to reduce the false acceptance rate, false rejection rate, and false enrollment rate. Our proposed algorithm has a modified RSA algorithm, and we have discussed also the wavelet. We have used the wavelet transformation for increasing the enhancement of fuzzy logic, and new modified algorithm is combines the three processes of fuzzy logic, which are encryption, decryption, and classification of person, which is done according to the sequence operation. And this wavelet transformation is mostly used. And for all these processes, we have selected the 6 parameters, namely mean square error, peak signal to noise ratio, structure similarity index, quality, entropy, and the time complexity. There's some basic information about my paper. In this paper, we have discussed the security issues biometric system. Biometric system means which is used, which is the authentication process used in information technology to identify the authorized user using their characteristics. And in our work, we have to identify the person with the help of encryption decryption process. And this wavelet transformation algorithm in our algorithm, which speed up the performance, time complexity and quality parameters also give us a higher accuracy. And this biometric system deals with the procedure identifying the people using their measurable, unique and permanent characteristics, such as a fingerprint, iris, face, palm print, vein, DNA, handwriting, hand geometry, and many more. And we have also used the multimodal system, means which is the fusion of a unimodal biometric design. And this goal of this multimodal biometric system is to reduce the error or minimize the errors in FAR, FRR, and FER. I have selected the 4 biometric systems. This biometric system is actually divided into 2 parts: physically, physiological recognition system and behavioral recognition system. And these are the some contents included in physiological, and these are the traits behavioral recognition. I have selected the 4 traits: face, fingerprint, and iris, and palm print. According to this table, I decided that the security related to face, fingerprint, and iris and palm print is very good. And also the response time, performance accuracy is also good. I have collected more than 5,000 data for my project, which is samples of a face, iris, fingerprint, and palm print from 2 colleges and school, and also my village. And this figure shows the fingerprint, iris, and face palm print images, respectively. These are some sample images. I have used the fuzzy logic concept and multimodal. As we know that the fuzzy logic works in a membership function, and also it not only give the value of 1 or 0, but it also describe the truth values between the 0 and 1. This fuzzy association rule used to find an abstract correlation between the different security features. These fuzzy association rules are easy to write and understand. And for all these processes, I have used the MATLAB 2017 to run my project. In digital image processing, membership function belongs to the gray level information. That's why multimodal has a various digital images of biometric trait, and fuzzy logic is used to calculate the intensity of the pixels. And this multimodal means a combination of unimodal biometric traits. I have selected face, fingerprint, iris, and palm print. Fuzzy logic is used in the evaluation process of multimodal. In our methodology of our project is, in our model of fuzzy approach is for solving the security problems in personal identification. We have taken a data set from school, college, village in Satara, which is then processed this data set using the MATLAB 2017. We have proposed the modified RSA algorithm, and this algorithm will reduce the processing time and complexity of the data set. We have also used the data set for digital image processing domain according to the type of attribute programming has been also done. Parameters will be used to reduce the processing time and complexity of the data set. The some noteworthy contribution in the field of proposed work. These are some papers. I have referred mostly 3 papers. Literature review is more than 100 papers, but there is a noteworthy contribution of this paper is in my work. This is the iris recognition for personal identification using the RSA algorithm. This is
Sorry to interrupt, dear presenter. You have last 1 minute. Please conclude your presentation.
Okay, ma'am. Fuzzy inference system, which is created by me by using the MATLAB. I have created MSE, PSNR, SSIM, quality and entropy of our MRSA algorithm. This is a diagrammatic representation, and this is the statistical and fuzzy variables which I have mentioned in my diagrams. I have mentioned the membership function MF1 and MF2 for every MSE value, PSNR value, SSIM, quality and entropy. There is a different value for each object, each variable. These are the diagrammatic representation. I have created the 19 rules for this fuzzy inference system. These are the values which I have mentioned in my rule. The MSE is a different fuzzy based system.
Sharmila, are you done?
Yes, ma'am.
Because your screen seems. Sharmila, are you done?
Sorry, ma'am.
Richa, I'm not too sure whether she's done or not.
Yes, ma'am. I have run this program.
Sharmila, please conclude your presentation.
Okay, ma'am. Ma'am, I can't hear properly. Ma'am, some network issue in my side, I think.
If you are done, you can please stop sharing your screen.
Yeah.
No, if you are done, you can stop sharing. Yeah, you can stop sharing.
Okay, ma'am.
Richa, I think we are done.
Yes, ma'am, we are done.
Yeah,
Yes,
so thank you all the participants. It was wonderful listening to some new discoveries, some new areas of research that you're working on. And I, on behalf of ICT 4SD, would like to thank all of you for contributing to the conference. And as Richa said, it's a challenge for all of us. So thank you for being available online and making this session a successful one. Over to Richa.
Thank you so much, everyone, for the excellent presentation. And all the presentations participation would be getting digital certificate within 2 working days. And we had already forwarded to all the paper to the Springer, and kindly cooperate with the team of ICT 4SD. And I would thank you, our session chair, for chairing this session. Thank you so much, ma'am, for your valuable time and presence. I asked to my team to display the certificate. Ma'am, this is a token of appreciation and the team,
Thank you so much.
Behalf of ICT 4SD and a Global Knowledge Research Foundation.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I kindly request to everyone to turn on their camera to take a quick snapshot to making this conference more memorable. Thank you so much, ma'am, and thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Please take care and stay safe. Thank you.